is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast with today's guest, Doug Endersbee.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Selena Knight here, live in San Diego. Yes, I am recording this just a couple of days before the episode goes live, and I'm in my lovely Airbnb where I'm staying with my marketing manager, Monica. We are staying in this beautiful Airbnb. It's a really cozy 2-bedroom cottage, but it is so light and airy. It's been beautifully decorated. It's next door to a park. So this morning we were out co-working in the park, which was great because the Wi-Fi is literally just outside the door. So the Wi-Fi extended to the park. So we were out in the sun, just working away. And we've done so much work on branding. We've done so much on content. We've just really nailed down a whole lot of resources that are going to help you, the retailer, to grow your businesses. So keep an eye out over the next few weeks because a lot of new stuff is coming. It has been so fun being here in San Diego. I was here at the end of last year, and in fact, I stayed at this exact same Airbnb, and it was so nice. I came back again. But I arrived on Thursday, and my lovely friend Gina from Course Creation Boutique picked me up from the airport. We went and had lunch, and then I did a little bit of shopping, and I came and I checked into the Airbnb and just relaxed. I haven't done that for a while. Just relaxed. And then on Friday, Monica was flying in, so I knew I had most of the day to just do something. So I got all very local, and I decided to get myself a Metro Day Pass, and I caught 2 buses and a train and then another bus down to the border. You know, just because that's what tourists do. But I could have just Ubered there. But instead, I chose to catch public transport. And it was fantastic because I saw so many great things. I got to see the marina. I got to see a naval base. I saw a car park that had, I'm not joking, probably 10,000 RVs parked in it. And I still to this moment don't know what all those RVs were doing in the car park. In my head, I've made up the story that it was a whole bunch of people going on a cruise. But then Gina tells me there's no cruises that leave from that area. So I don't know what all the RVs were doing, but it was RVs for as far as the eye could see. So if you're a San Diegan local and you know what all those RVs are along the blue line, feel free to message me and let me know. Get my curiosity and settle it. But I caught the buses and I caught the trains. Everybody was so nice and it was so easy. I love the fact that here in San Diego, you can buy your bus ticket on an app at home. We do not have that in Australia. We're not that technologically advanced in Sydney. But it just made life so easy. $5, any bus, they call them trolleys, but we call them trains, any train throughout the day. And so I figured, why not take advantage? So I was just traveling around the countryside on buses, on trains. I had Google Maps and I went down to the border. I did a little bit of shopping and then I just moseyed on back in time to go out for dinner with my friend Gina. And it was great. We went to Ethiopian, which is not something I've had before, but it was so delicious. Although Gina did laugh at me because I was eating New Zealand lamb. She said she just couldn't understand that New Zealand is not Australia. So if you are listening and you don't understand, New Zealand is not Australia. It is a whole different country. You need a passport to get there. You have to fly on a plane for, depending on which side of Australia you're on, anywhere between 3 and 8 hours. It is not Australia. Just let's get this clear. So she thought it was quite funny that I flew to the other side of the world to eat New Zealand lamb. But there was no Californian lamb on the menu, so what's a girl to do? So by the time Monica arrived, we had a glass, her and Gina and I had a glass of wine and just kind of chatted. And of course, we all chat about work because we are all in the same industry. But the next day, Gina and her husband Al and their son came and picked us up and took us sightseeing. So far, we have seen Sunset Cliffs, which was great for Monica. I've been to the beach here before, so it was great. But for Monica, it was a fantastic experience, even better. And you know what? As a friend, this is the great thing when you take somebody sightseeing is you see things in a brand new light. You see what they're seeing as if it's like for the first time again. So we went to Liberty Station, which is an old, I think it was naval barracks, which has been turned into these really funky cafes and produce markets and art studios. We kind of wandered around there for the day. We had some lunch. And then, here's the thing. If you haven't heard me say it before, I have terrible sinus problems. So we got dropped at home and I needed some soft tissues. Look, I will be the first one to put my hand up and say, I am a tissue snob. I need those ones with the extra soothing lotion because when you have allergies, you are constantly wiping your nose. So normal tissues just end up rubbing your nose red raw. So all day I'd been saying to everybody, I need to get these soft tissues. But we didn't actually go past a convenience store or a Walgreens or a CVS or anything. So when we got home, I said to Gina, I am going to catch the bus down to Ralph's, the supermarket, and I'm going to get some tissues. And she said, oh, there's actually a back way because Gina used to live in this neighborhood. And she said, I'll drive you down there. You'll just have to find your way home. So she dropped me down, showed me a few little tips and tricks to make it a bit quicker. And I went to the shops and I got my tissues, I got my guacamole, and I got some bottled water. And then I had to get home. Now, the easy thing would have been to just catch an Uber home. A couple of dollars. It's so cheap here to Uber. A couple of dollars and I could have got home. But no, I wanted to hang out like a local. And I'd seen these yellow and green bicycles everywhere. So while I was there, I Googled these yellow and green bicycles, and they are like rideshare bicycles. You literally just hire them for 30 minutes for $1 and you just leave them on the side of the road. Apparently, my husband tells me we have these in Sydney. We certainly do not have them in my neighbourhood because I live in suburbia, but apparently we have them in Sydney. So I thought, hey, there's one right there. Why don't I just bicycle back home? It's going to cost me $1. I get to see a little bit of the neighbourhood. It's a little bit of exercise. I haven't ridden a bike for about 15 years, but, you know, they say it's just like riding a bike. You just get back on and it's just like riding a bike. So I did. I downloaded the app. I popped my credit card in. I paid my $1. And as I said, right, you know, where we're staying, there's a park right next door. So I felt okay with just leaving the bike in the bike rack, even though they say you can leave them anywhere, any sidewalk, anywhere in the town. But I was like, I don't know, I'm new to this thing. I want to leave it somewhere where people can use it. And that's what I did. I biked home and I was a little bit unsteady to begin with. It was just like riding a bike, but I hadn't done it for quite some time. And there was a little bit of a hill to come up to get back. So luckily the bike had gears, but did I feel it? Not only had I gone for a 3-mile run in the morning and then walked around Liberty Station all day and then biked home. I think I well and truly earned my glass of wine last night that Monica and I had. So we popped over to a local bar, which again, I'd been to before, and it's so fantastic. The guy who owns it, Oz, he's Mexican, but it was like Mexican fusion tapas. It's really hard to explain, but it was so tasty. So we had this beautiful, authentic sangria, and then we had this spicy sausage and guacamole. This is where I introduced Monica to guacamole. She can't believe she's never had guacamole before. And there was some steak and some chicken and these little tiny miniature street tacos. It was so, so good. So if you are a local San Diegan, I highly recommend Quaver Bar, which is up in University Heights. And if you are coming to visit, I highly recommend University Heights. The only downside being, if you don't have a car, it is about a 5-minute bike ride to the shops. But there are so many great restaurants. Already this morning, Monica and I have not only co-worked in the park, but we did go to the local coffee shop, Twigs, and we hung out there for about 2 hours because Monica's 3 hours ahead in her body because she comes from the East Coast, and I'm 19 hours ahead because I came from Australia. So both of us are really whacked out in terms of time zone. So we got up early, went to the coffee shop, had some breakfast, had a coffee for Monica and a tea for me, and our brains were just firing. So we have so much stuff coming your way. But I'm also here in town to go to the Traffic and Conversion Conference, which starts tomorrow. And I know that I've already booked in about 15 speakers that I want to see. And I am focusing my learning on Facebook ads. I mean, it's digital marketing altogether, but I want to do a lot of stuff on video ads and Facebook ads. What is happening in Facebook ads land? So as a result, I have put together a webinar, or I'm going to put together a webinar, and I'm going to hold that on the 6th of March, Australian time. You have to go to the website and do the conversion for yourself. But the 6th of March, I'll be going through tips on how to optimize your Facebook ads. So if you've been using Facebook ads to sell physical products and they're not converting, I'm going to show you the 3 things that are stopping your ads from converting. Plus, I'm going to throw in a whole bunch of tips and tricks and strategies that I learn at Traffic and Conversion this week. So if you would like to enroll in that, if you'd like to grab your spot, head on over to selinaknight.com/marketing, and you can grab your spot on my free online training, which is going to be live, talking all about how to make your Facebook ads convert into sales. And you can do that at selinaknight.com/marketing. I hope to see you there. Now, on to today's episode. I've got Doug Endersbee back on the show to talk to us all about ransomware and cybercrime. Last year, and you'll hear me talk about this in the interview, my lovely next door neighbor Greg, who's pretty much part of our family, got a ransomware attack. And I tell you the story inside the episode, so I won't go into it to detail here. But essentially, they locked down all the files in his computer, in his external hard drive, and they ransomed them for $1,200 US. Now, he didn't end up paying. He decided that he could just pretty much recreate what he had from other documents and whatever. But I know that a lot of retailers are getting caught out with, things that look like FedEx deliveries or Australia Post deliveries or gas bills or electricity bills. I'm hearing a lot more people are getting caught out with cybercrime. So today, Doug is going to share a whole bunch of tips on how you can not become a statistic when it comes to cybercrime, how you can protect yourself, and what you can show your employees to make sure that they are cyber safe as well. You just cannot afford to be losing all of your data, or even, they have the ability to actually shut down your whole operations. And Doug's going to give us a few examples inside of today's episode as well. So let's jump into today's episode, all about staying safe, cybercrime, and not becoming a victim of ransomware with Doug Endersbee from Oz Hosting. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to do a great big shout out to the patrons of the show. Now, this is something that we implemented in episode 100, which is where my daughter Alana, who's 8, interviewed me and got a little bit obsessed with our dog. It's very funny. If you need a pick-me-up, go and listen to an 8-year-old get interviewed. But this show stays proudly independent, just like your retail store, because of people like you who pledge their support to keep it going. Now, putting this show together is not easy and it costs a lot of money. You know this. This is how business works, right? So I'm out there putting anywhere between 5 and 8 pieces of business strategy advice in your pocket or in your earbuds every single month, and you can pledge your support to keep the show alive. So I would love it if you would become a patron of the show. Simply head on over to selinaknight.com/patron and you can find the information there. Click the big button on the show notes if you would like to pledge your support, and jump into today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about something that scares the hearts and minds of just about every person who has ever opened an email in their life. Today, we're going to be talking about ransomware and cybercrime. And I've got my friend Doug Endersbee back on the show to talk all things security and making sure that you don't get locked out and ransomed to your own information. So welcome to the show, Doug.
Thanks, Selena. Great to be here.
You gave us such great information when you were last on the show talking about how you should maintain control of your website. I've actually directed a lot of people to your services and a lot of people to that podcast, and it's been really helpful. So thanks so much for today to come on and talk about ransomware. Now, personally, my interactions with ransomware have been very close to home. Not my home, but very close. My next door neighbour, Greg, who is a part of our family just about, recently had his information stolen out of his computer. He received a gas bill, and these people were really, really smart. He received a gas bill that said that it was overdue. Now, my mate Greg is one of those people who pays every single bill on time. But he also got a text message to say that his gas bill was overdue. So, of course, when he clicked on the link, they stole everything on his computer and they held it to ransom for $1,200 US. So, tell us a little bit about how the whole ransomware started.
Sure. It's a new way for criminals to make money. Apparently, cybercrime is now larger than the illicit drug trade globally. So it's proved to be really profitable, fertile grounds for criminal networks to make an absolute ton of money. And as your mate Greg realised, their ability to look authentic is fabulous. They are, they just really look like they're the legit thing. So, another example I bumped into was, a friend of mine works at a real estate agency and received an email stating that they were investors and they had a couple of properties in southeast Melbourne where the real estate agency was, and if they sort of laid out some criteria, if you like, would the real estate agency be able to help them find some additional investment properties? Well, of course, that all sounds quite legit, and the response went straight back. Yes, certainly that's the area we operate in, and just give us a sense of the type of properties you're looking for. And they said, okay. They came back to them a day later and said, yeah, we're looking for apartments, probably in this price range, and we've attached some image files that we'd like you to have a look at and see if you've got anything similar to these. And there was a link in there to the supposed image files. Same again. It was a ransomware attack. So very cleverly groomed. Everything about it looks quite legitimate. And importantly, from a antivirus, anti-spam, anti-malware detection standpoint, so what we would call endpoint security, quite difficult to defend against. Because potentially that could be a freshly minted email address that's got no history of doing anything bad. And also, there is potentially in these what are called phishing attacks, there's no actual software in the email that you're receiving. It's just a link to, it could be a Dropbox link, for all you know, or for all any sort of anti-spam, antivirus detection service might know. So very difficult to stop it at the gate, and have any tools which will help you identify it on the way in.
I see this happening a lot. I've had a lot of interaction with people who have had their data either stolen or ransomed, and the ones that I see quite often are PayPal. And if you're a retailer, you're constantly getting email confirmations from PayPal. And if you've got a lot of transactions going through, there doesn't seem to be a difference between, hey, you've got an order, and then, hey, you've got an order. They look so authentic. So PayPal was one, Australia Post is the other one, where you get the notification to say that your parcel's coming. Now, this seems like a godsend for most people because here in Australia Post does not do a very good job of delivering parcels. If you're lucky, you get a card. They very rarely tend to knock on the door and actually deliver your parcel. So when you see these emails, you're trying to get on top of it. You're like, yes, I want my parcel delivered. I wonder how, and I'm just paranoid. I don't click on anything in an email anymore. So tell me, how can we make sure that we're not in the same position as Greg and your real estate agent and the retailers that I know that have been victims of these crimes?
The only way to do it is to be able to diagnose the email, and if it's not from somebody that you know, there is some header information in an email, and this is quite difficult for the ordinary user to interrogate, because when they send these emails, they can quite easily what's called spoof a legitimate email address. So what you see in the information that's first visible to you is that it seems to be from AGL or it seems to be from Australia Post. If you then click on a couple of links that relate to the properties of the email that's been delivered to you, so you can see the various networks that it's gone through and those sorts of things, then you will often find the true email address of the sender. Very difficult for ordinary folks to do that. So that in my view, the best thing to do in a situation like that is, let's say that it purports to be from Australia Post. If you've got an Australia Post email login, and a lot of us do, I certainly do, I would just go to that. I would ignore the email and I would just log in, and if it's legit, then I'm probably going to see a message from Australia Post there regarding either an inbound delivery or something that I've sent. And I do the same for just about any of those services that purport to be, from my bank or from, my electricity provider or whoever that might be.
It really is quite onerous, though, isn't it? The reason we have email is to try and make our lives a little bit easier. Well, when our inboxes aren't flooded. And now, have we actually got to the point where you just can't trust anything in your inbox?
I don't think that we're at that point, but it is an onerous task, and it's beholden on individuals in a business to be very selective about how they review email and what they actually open, and what links they click on or what attachments they're prepared to accept. There's no easy way around it, because your spam filtering is not able to filter out stuff that's got no attachments, no malware attached. It's just got a hyperlink that we're all sending hyperlinks to each other all the time to, visit this page on my website, or, I thought this was really funny, have a look at this. It's happening all the time, and it's just too easy for it to look innocent. So it is just being savvy, being vigilant, and I'd really recommend that anyone with a lot of staff that are receiving a lot of email, that they look into having some kind of a training program where staff can be actually, if you like, trained by somebody who's expert in that space. And there are organisations which will also come back and they will do it, say, on a quarterly basis. So they'll send out some fake phishing emails, spoofing email addresses, and they will be able to tell who clicked on them, and then go back to the owner of the business and say, okay, well, we sent something to 25 of your staff and 5 people clicked on it. And, no shame in that, because a lot of these things can look so legit. What did the real estate salesperson do? They had what looked like a really genuine inquiry right inside their product set. So they're going to respond to these things. So you've really just got to be vigilant and well trained. By the way, with the real estate agency, they did not click on the link. They were suspicious of it, and they spoke to a few other people, and they did send some replies and say, just give us a sense of the areas and that sort of thing. And of course, at that point, the conversation goes cold.
Smart people. Because I have to admit, there's a pretty good chance I might have clicked on that kind of email. And you were talking about something that is extremely relevant if you have a team in your store. And the couple of retailers that I know, it was actually their team that clicked on these Australia Post emails and the PayPal emails, because obviously they didn't know, but that's their job being in the shop. Oh, and orders come through. And so, for example, let's take the PayPal email. PayPal's come through and said, you have an order, and then they've gone into their system and they can't see the order. But they have to actually click at some point to see. They were obviously doing the investigation. Oh, technology glitches out all the time. Oh, PayPal sent me this, but the order's not there. So it wasn't until further down the track that they realised that they had a problem, and in fact, all their data just disappeared. So can you tell us a little bit about how, apart from ransomware, which I'll get you to explain a little bit more about, is there any other kind of cybercrime that we should be worried about? So first of all, just tell us about what ransomware is. I gave you 2 questions. That wasn't very
okay. yeah, let's just jump into ransomware and how that functions. So, to your, going back to your next door neighbour, he clicked on a link, and then ultimately he was asked to pony up some money, to provide some money, and they would unlock his PC or his workstation that had been encrypted. So the way that it works is that when the payload is sent out, so they found one email address that might even be actually posted on your website, sales@ourbusiness.com.au, and there's no sort of capture way of hiding that, so people can just do a scrape of your website and get your email addresses. That's one of the ways they get them. So they send the email address in, or they send the email in, and then somebody on the sales side, dutifully opens it up. Then what might happen is that if they click on the link and the malware launches itself into that person's workstation, typically it's going to sit there for quite some time. Because what they want to do is they want to find all the different devices that connect to that network. So the workstation's on the network, they're on the workstation. They will then start to sniff out through the network. Oh, over here you've got your network attached storage, all your backups, and that's actually connected to a workstation over here that controls the backup regimen and then sends everything to the network attached storage. Okay, let's encrypt all of that. So what they're doing is they're using standard encryption technology to encrypt all the files, so they are completely useless to you. You can't open them. You can't do a thing with them. And the malware will just sit there, and as time goes by, other workstations come into work and people fire up their PCs and they're all working, and it might stay on there for a month because it's waiting for those people that only work 2 or 3 days a month, and it'll get their devices. And then they wait a period of time where they feel as though they've got everything on that network, nothing new has been added in a little while. Okay, let's launch the payload, and that's when people come into their office and everyone starts looking at each other and saying, hey, I can't get into anything. I can't see any orders. I don't know how much inventory we've got. I can't do a thing. I don't even know who our customers are right now because I've got no information available to me. They lock, everything down. And at that point, typically what they will then see on their screen is there'll be a pop-up that says, hey, if you give us, $10,000 in Bitcoin, we will provide the encryption key and will allow you to unlock all your files and recommence business. Now, for businesses so affected, that can be absolutely catastrophic. And there was a crypto locker virus that was launched last year, and it was called the Petya virus. And that affected Cadbury, Cadbury chocolates in Tasmania, and it actually locked down their entire factory capacity, apparently, so that they couldn't even put an almond on a chockie. They didn't know how many almonds they had. They didn't know how many chockies they had. They didn't even know if they had orders for chocolate, topped almonds or chockies with almonds on top, all of that kind of thing. So they knew nothing. And then at some point in time, it took them quite a while to get back on deck and get everything functioning again. And then at a later date, the senior management team were clearly asked by shareholders and stakeholders, well, okay, this has clearly had a financial impact on the business. You need to tell us how much the profit and loss statement for the firm is going to be affected by this. And they put a charge of $140 million on their P&L for the cost of that event and recovering from that event.
That's
so
terrifying.
it can be an absolute calamity for small businesses. Sometimes what they find is that they pay the ransomware and the encryption keys don't come back to them, so they've just blown the money. And then sometimes, if the business is absolutely reliant on all that information, that can be the end of their business. Very hard to rebuild all that information if you've just lost it all.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about, so as I said, I've got my next door neighbour Greg as the example. Greg is really fussy about backing everything up. You can tell he's very methodical.
Right.
He's very fussy about backing things up. But exactly what you just said happened to him. He was backing up his computer at the time with an external hard drive, and it got into that as well. So he couldn't even go into the backups. My question to you is, if, for example, I back my system up into iCloud or I've got CrashPlan, I make sure that I back up my system 3 times a day. Can this kind of system get into a cloud-based backup? Is that the best form of security?
Yes, it is, because it's not permanently attached to the device. So, but the important aspect of that is that you have multiple versions of the backup, so that you can go back and you said backing up 3 times a day, and you might back up 3 times a day, and then keep the last 30 days worth of backups. And that doesn't have to be a complete backup of your 750 gig computer 3 times a day, which is 2.1 terabytes, and on we go. These can be incremental backups. So it's just doing an initial backup, which could have been done 3 years ago for all that it matters, and then you're doing incremental backups 3 times a day, and you're able to go back. Potentially, if you set up the backup regimen that way, you could go back quite a few months. That then provides you with very discrete, completely unrelated backups of everything that was backed up by that particular process. Could be 10 PCs in a small office, and that gives you terrific ability to recover from a ransomware attack, because you can say, all right, I need to go back to the 17th of January. All right, well, I've got a copy of that. Might not be exactly the 17th. Maybe you need to go back to the 16th or 15th or something like that and recover from that point in time. But that will give you the ability to withstand that kind of ransomware attack. It's completely independent, happens automatically. And, you mentioned people having doing a backup to a hard drive, and, your poor mate Greg, he had one of these backups. That is a really risky, and I'd have to say inferior form of backup, because when you're backing up to a cloud, so we have a backup platform, then when that backup occurs, the storage, the data that's being stored as part of the backup process, it's not sitting on one computer with one hard drive. It's actually spread across multiple servers, each of which has got a hard drive tray of up to 16 hard drives. And it's spread all over them. So, you end up with 5, 6, 7 servers, whatever it is, and, 6 times 16 or something in terms of the number of hard drives. So what that means is that if an individual hard drive fails, and it happens to have some of your data on it, it doesn't matter, because there's duplicate copies right across the system. So on a system like ours, for instance, if we had, we could have 3 hard drives fail, and nobody would ever know, because there's that level of redundancy in the platform. We could have a server fail, nobody would ever know. The backups continue. Whereas a lot of small businesses have a very false sense of security, because they tuck a hard drive under their arm every evening and go home, and it's a spinning platter. It's a very, very, finely tuned piece of mechanical. It's a mechanical device, and it's not designed to be bouncing around in a handbag on the bus back to Bondi Junction, and then coming into the office the next morning and plonked on a desk and reconnected every time. It's very easy for those devices to have bad sectors on them, to be affected by just the wear and tear of the travel. And so for a small business, if that's your backup, it's almost like saying, I'm only going to have one bullet in the chamber of my gun. The target is a hell of a long way away, because you don't even know if your hard drive has been dismounted off the workstation correctly, or just the cord was yanked out and it hasn't sort of captured all the data correctly. It's been corrupted. It's really asking a lot to stake all your business on that one hard drive that you bought from Officeworks a couple of years ago. That's so well travelled now.
And I was going to say, I think a lot of people assume incorrectly that you only need this kind of data if you're a multi-site store, or if you've got several employees. The fact is, if you just have one computer, one laptop, one PC, and it's just you working in the business, it is just as important to be backing up every single day as it is to a multinational company.
Yeah, you're dead right. And one of the things, that we often hear from business owners is that they say, "Oh, Doug, we're too small. Who's going to worry about us?" They're after the big guys. They're after Cadbury and folks like that. What that fails to realise and to recognise is that these phishing attacks and these what they call drive-by malware attacks, they're all about. They're totally automated. So they are just pinging networks all over the world looking for a way in. Then when they find a way in, they then find out, well, who is it that we're attacking and what can we get out of them? So sure, it might be a sole trader, and they might look at it and go, well, heck, I know that if they go down the road and talk to a forensic data recovery guy, they're going to have to spend $2,000 before the guy's going to talk to them to recover their laptop and their backups. So let's set the ransomware figure at $1,900.
Yeah,
and
so
that's exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are 100% right there. Greg, when he did some digging, and I have to admit, this is my husband's forte. He's in internet security, so I know personally that we're okay here. But he was explaining to me that they do exactly what you just said. They analyse, I assume automatically, the kind of data that's involved. And with Greg, he was on a committee as a volunteer, and he had lots of spreadsheets. And obviously they could see that he had lots of spreadsheets, so they thought that he was worth more than somebody else. So when he started doing some digging on forums like Whirlpool, people were saying, $200 here, $300 there, and they wanted $1,200 from Greg because clearly they'd looked at what was on his system and it looked like it could be important.
Yeah.
So it's taken that amount based on the kind of data it was encrypting.
Yeah. That's exactly what they'll do. And they will research you and they'll go online and they'll figure out how many staff you've got and, the about us. And if they've got access to people's devices, which often they will have, they will see how many people are in the organisation from the email account. They might even interrogate that. And, there are the other things they do, which will give them a sense of where to pitch the ransomware.
And the silly thing is, to get back up to the cloud, I think I pay around about $3 a month. And it just sits in the background on my laptop, backing up several times a day for $3.
Yeah, it's well worth it. And typically when you talk to people that are affected by one of these events, all of a sudden their data takes on a new value. It might be, they might even balk at $3 a month, but they might say, look, I bought a 1 terabyte hard drive, 4 years ago from Harvey Norman, and I'm going to keep using that. So their backup cost, if you amortize it, is like $25 a year, and they don't want to, spend the money on something more than that. But when something dreadful happens, all of a sudden they can see that they're about to lose days and days and days of productivity, and they still have to pay someone to get the data back because it's just inconceivable that they're going to lose all that. So, potentially you've got a sole trader who's lost the best part of a week and still spent a couple of grand trying to recover the data, and potentially has only got some of it back anyway.
And the stress that comes with it.
And the stress. So the cost of the alternative is, you're dead right, generally trivial by comparison.
So tell me, and I know this is not your area of expertise, so it's okay if if you're not able to answer the question, but can you actually get insurance against this kind of attack?
Yes, you can, but it's a really interesting area that we've been looking into quite recently. Simply because I was at a security conference and there was a panel of insurance brokers talking to this cybersecurity conference about security, and I put my hand up and I said, hey, if somebody's got all their ducks in a row, they're pretty solid, they've got endpoint protection, they've got multiple versions of backup, both local and to a cloud facility that they can readily access, everything looks really strong. I'm guessing they'd get a cheaper insurance premium, wouldn't they? And they went, oh no, that's not going to happen. What that means is that if they were to make a claim, it would probably be paid. And that was a little bit of a aha moment for me, because essentially what we're seeing in this area of cyber insurance is that particularly for small businesses that might just jump online and buy an insurance policy online, they really should be talking to an insurance broker. They should have cyber insurance, number one. But if you look at a lot of the cyber insurance policies and look at what they require of the customer, the policyholder, they actually expect that you are going to be cyber secure. It's no different to when they insure a car. They expect that the car is roadworthy. They'll ask you, is your car roadworthy? And you'll say, yes, it is. If you come back to them in 6 months later and say, hey, we went off the road, going around the corner, and they find out, well, actually your tyres were bald or your brakes didn't work and the car was not roadworthy, they don't pay. For the small business owner, same deal. If you've ticked all the boxes and said, yes, of course I've got, a current version of antivirus, and I've got malware, and I've got endpoint protection, and I've got a backup that I can rely on and bring everything down, and then you make a claim and say, I've been locked up and I've lost everything, and it turns out that you've checked all the boxes that said you had the right things in place so that they could issue you the policy, but in actual fact you couldn't have, because that's why you're making the claim, you won't get a payout. It's really important, I think, for small business owners to have cyber insurance, but I would definitely talk to a broker before you do it and make sure that you truly do comply with their security requirements, because otherwise, you're just throwing good money after bad. Now, just on a relative thing, what I do understand about insurance is that well over 70% of Australian businesses, small businesses, do not have a cyber insurance policy. The vast majority of them do believe that they've got some kind of, business continuity insurance policy in place, flood, fire, theft, something like that. And if their business is interrupted because of a cyber event, somebody trying to rip money off them and all those sorts of things, somehow magically that insurance policy will cover it. I'd say look again, because it probably doesn't. Then of the remaining 30% of Australian businesses that have got actually a cyber insurance policy in place, and in the small businesses, let's say under 10 staff, it's probably less than 10% have got a policy, have a good look at it and make sure that you truly do comply. And if you've got any questions, call up your broker and question them about it, because a very large percentage of those guys will have been paying insurance premiums for policies that would never sustain a claim.
Yep. I love my broker, my insurance broker. I always say it is worth using an insurance broker because they're the intermediary who can explain it all to you. And hopefully if you have a broker, they're as fantastic as my girl, because she will tell me, she's like, right, if you have this, you have to make sure you've got this, and this, and this in place in order to be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just in terms of backup, one of the things that's important to understand that we see with people with backup that needs to be considered is how accessible the backup copies are. So it's one thing to have a cloud backup in place, but then you need to look at your business and say, okay, how much data have I got backed up? If you've got a terabyte of data backed up and you've got an ADSL connection, unless your backup provider can download onto hard drives and send you the backups by courier, it could take weeks or even months to get a terabyte of data through an Australian ADSL connection. Not really a usable solution. So, you need to understand with your backup provider, where is the data and what are my access options? And what sort of backups can I do? Can I do a full system state backup, which means the whole device, the operating system, the applications on it, the files on it, or is it just a backup of the individual files? And the reason that that's important is if you've got, 10 or 15 staff and all of them lose their workstations because they get encrypted, if an IT guy has to come in and basically wipe the drive on all of those workstations and then reinstall the operating system, reinstall the applications, and then reintroduce all the work files that the applications access so that those people can do useful work, you've got a hell of a lot of time per workstation times 15 or 20. If the backup is actually a full system state backup, then what you're able to do is you can restore the last good version of that machine as it was. So the operating system, the applications, even your browser history will automatically come back in as part of that backup process. So when people think about backup, one of your objectives is going to be your restore time objective. What can we tolerate? Can I have 20 staff unproductive for 5 business days, or would I be happy with only 2? 5 is unacceptable. If it's only 2, you probably want a system state backup. If it's 5, then maybe you can say, all right, well, look, I'll save a bit of money on storage, and I'll just back up the files on the PC and not worry about the operating system and the applications.
Interesting. And I'll have to admit, I'm a little bit ignorant there because that's my husband's jam, and I figure that he's got it sorted fine for us. I'm pretty sure we also back up to a server in our own house, which is a little bit scary, probably a little bit over the top. But
no, it's not over the top. It's really important that you do that. We call that the local backup. So a lot of the cloud backup services, certainly the one that we offer, is a hybrid backup. And so the way that works is when you set up your backup regimen, it'll do the first backup to your local backup storage hardware, whatever that might be, a couple of external hard drives or a network-attached storage device or something like that. Terrific. Because then, if, back to the example of 15 or 20 staff, if a staff member, one individual, the forklift backed over his laptop in the warehouse or something like that, okay, go to your local backup storage and get a new PC from Harvey Norman or somewhere, and basically just recover his old PC to the new machine that you've just bought. Really easy. But if everyone is locked down from ransomware, including potentially your local network-attached storage has been compromised, that's when the cloud one is really, really important. So for convenience, we would always suggest people have a hybrid backup service, and our hybrid backup service itself will do all that automatically. 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., let's back up to the local attached storage service, and at 7 p.m., let's back that device up to the cloud attached, and then you've always got the option.
Clearly, that's what, as I look across the room, the square box under my bookcase is.
Indeed.
That's such helpful information. And, I think I know this stuff in the back of my head. Not all of it, but I knew that the box underneath the bookcase was important. I probably could have asked what it was. But now that you say that, I'm pretty sure I've heard those words out of my husband's mouth at some point in time.
There you go. It's called osmosis. It's just lying beside him occasionally. Some of it has jumped across into your brain.
Some of it filters through with a little bit of prompting from Doug's advice. So you've shared so much helpful information. We don't want to overwhelm everybody's brains. If people are thinking, Doug, I need some help with this, where can they find you?
Just jump online, go to ozhosting.com.au. We've got, there you will find our phone number, our 1300 number, 1300 467 843. And also we have online chat. We have a hell of a lot of small businesses open up online chat on our website and start talking to one of our customer service guys, and very quickly they say, okay, that's enough information, let's have a conversation and have a phone call as well. So that's a really, common path where people just kind of ping us and make sure that we're on the right path in terms of what they need to do, and then we're always happy to talk to them. I think generally, the phone conversation and getting a little bit of a context about the business and how they run it makes a hell of a difference in terms of making sure that people are getting what's going to be useful to them.
Sounds like a plan. One last question for you, Doug. Tell me the name of your most favourite store.
In which retail category?
Any retail category, which is the store
Dan
that
Murphy's.
You love. And for people who don't know what Dan Murphy's are, for all you Americans, Dan Murphy is a liquor store. So tell us, why do you like that store so much?
Well, I think they have a terrific range of, typically I'm looking for sort of red wines and white wines. They generally have helpful staff. They're really well trained, and if you come in and you say, look, this is what I'm thinking, I want a 6 or 7 year old Cabernet Sauvignon, I really like Coonawarra region, I love that currenty cassis taste, they will go, and they will take you straight round to the best one, and typically for a tightwad like me, the best one that's on special this week.
And that kind of customer experience you don't get in so many other stores. So it does come down to customer experience.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much for your help on the show. And if you would like to know more about Doug's services, head on over to ozhosting.com.au.
Terrific. Thanks, Selena.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.